Welcome to the Fantasy Six Pack Network. My name is Joe Bond, founder of FantasySixPack.net. We're going to be talking some Arizona Cardinals football, seeing if Marvin Harrison Jr. can take that year two leap that we are hoping. And to help me do that, Donnie Druin here from Cardinals on SI. How's it going on today, man?
Joe, yeah, thanks so much for having me, man. Very excited to hop on and then always talk football. I love talking Arizona Cardinals football with anybody, so it's really cool to be here.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for spending some time with us and doing this. So we're going to start though with Kyler Murray. This will tie into Marvin Harrison Jr., but it all starts with the quarterback, right? Second year now removed from the ACL injury. You know, he looked good at times last year, didn't look so great at times last year. Is he looking like he did pre-ACL injury again? Can we expect this passing game to take another leap forward and, you know, him to get back to like, I think the real rushing prowess that we knew he had?
Yeah, you always hear that players never really feel like themselves that first year coming back from an ACL injury. And he definitely admitted that that was the case. I think speaking earlier this offseason with reporters, he told us that, he really feels like himself again. I don't think he's quite moving as fast as he was pre-ACL injury. I think that's very normal, though. I don't think he'll maybe be that 10 out of 10 athlete that he was coming out of college into the NFL after the ACL tear. But he still moves quick. He still moves really, really good. I think people like to point out that long 49ers rushing touchdown he had last year, and then the one against the Miami Dolphins last year too. So he could still move. He's still very much a threat. And I think a big emphasis and a big talking point around here in the desert this offseason has been, how could we get Kyler Murray to be more of a threat on the ground? Because whenever he makes plays with his legs, the defenses have to respect it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when a majority of the big chunk plays come. And so I think maybe more so in training camp, I've noticed a little bit more designed runs for Kyler Murray. I don't think they're going to turn him into Lamar Jackson. I don't think he's going to be a guy that logs 10 rushes per game or anything close to that. But I do think there might be a little bit more of a conscious effort to get Kyler's legs going. And for an offensive coordinator like Drew Petzing, who likes to keep things balanced, I think that's just another wrinkle that he can really throw in. And I think that the big thing when you talk about Kyler Murray, we know the athletic upside, we know the arm talent that he has. We've seen the ceiling. We've also seen the floor. Mm-hmm. The big thing around Kyler is going to be the consistency, the level to play at on a week-to-week basis. And he talked to us early in training camp, and he said that the greats don't get bored of doing the same thing over and over again. He talked about taking that 5-yard route, that 4-yard instead of trying to make something deep happen. That was something that kind of plagued the team towards the end of last year. They were 6-4. They had the division lead entering the bye week, and they went 2-5 to finish the year. Kyler Murray, I think the last 7 games threw 8 interceptions or something like that. So a lot of it comes down to how consistently good can Kyler be, because he's got the defense to do it. He's got the running game to do it. He's got weapons such as Tre McBride, Marvin Harrison Jr. It's really all on him entering 2025.
Yeah, no doubt. The consistency was a huge thing. I did roster him last year in my fantasy leagues, and
Same.
Pain, man, felt the pain for sure. So definitely. So let's jump over here to the hook here at the beginning here with Marvin Harrison. And there's been a lot of talk about Harrison bulking up, and he's been looking great in camp, but just want to hear from your mouth, like, how good has he looked, and him and Kyler connecting in camp? What can we expect?
Marv looks great. I think there's no simpler way to put it. And it's so funny because catching 62 passes for 885 yards and 8 touchdowns, that's a pretty good year for any NFL receiver. Like that's pretty damn good. But when you arrive to the league as the number 4 overall pick, when your father is an NFL Hall of Fame receiver, there's expectations, and there's very large expectations placed on you. Even the generational tag was thrown on the Ohio State product coming out. Mm-hmm. So that being said, compared to other guys in his class like Brian Thomas Jr., like Malik Neighbors, it certainly was a little bit disappointing. And I think even talking to Marv towards the end of last year and over the offseason, he acknowledges that it was a little bit disappointing too, and it wasn't quite what he wanted it to be. But the good thing about Marv and him having that acumen as a son of a former, Hall of Fame receiver, is what you're going to get out of him. And whenever we talk to Marv about what he improved from year 1 to year 2, it wasn't speed, it wasn't and any of the generic things you hear from receivers. He told us that whenever he would break down the film, he would look at where defenders were placing their hands at the point of attack and where they were relative to before and after the catch. Case in point, details. He's a very detail-oriented, very detail-driven kind of a receiver. And you hear it all the time, Joe, that the difference between good and great in the National Football League is in the details. And so you have to trust that on top of him adding 15 pounds of muscle or whatever it was over the offseason. He's only going to get better, especially with more continuity with quarterback Kyler Murray. From my eyes in training camp, watched every single snap he took. He looks great. Marvin Harrison Jr. looks like the real deal. He looks like the receiver people had hoped he's going to be last year. Now, is he going to put up 1,500 yards? Probably not. Is he going to put up 15, 20 touchdowns? Probably not. But I do expect the year 2 jump. I do expect that sophomore surge from Marvin Harrison Jr. Do I think fantasy managers should temper expectations a little bit? Absolutely, because we have to remember they're still in a run-first offense. They're going to run the ball 30, 35 times a game. Tre McBride very much is still the number one passing option in that offense. But I do think that connection between Kyler and Marv is only growing. It's only getting better. And whenever Kyler needs a big play, he's going to go to Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yeah, and sorry, I'm listening. I'm not watching right now because I'm trying to look up something and it popped in my head. Are they changing his route tree a little bit? It felt like last year he ran just a lot of go routes, and that didn't really feel like his game coming out of college. And I'm looking it up, and if this is a correct stat, I don't even know where this is. Somebody on X, Seth on X, pointed the route tree. Almost 26% of his routes were go routes. That just doesn't feel like a huge successful play. So they've got to change that up, right? And are you seeing that in camp?
Yeah, I am for sure. And I think they're changing it up a little bit. And I think he had a lot of success with those deep crossing routes too. I feel like a lot of the touchdowns that Marv had just let him stretch the field both horizontally and vertically at the same time. I was very critical of offensive coordinator Drew Petzing last year because he kept trying to target Marv on these 9 rounds, on those go up and get it routes. And like you said, that's just not his game. He's not a 50-50 ball guy. He's not a guy, granted, he's 6'4", but he's not a guy who can use his frame and come down with it. He's not Calvin Johnson. He's not Julio Jones. He's a very, very good receiver in his own regard, but he didn't do that at Ohio State. And I'm not sure what caused the Cardinals to believe he could do that at the next level. So they're still giving him those deep ball opportunities. Now, for what it's worth, I do think his hand usage is being a little bit better. They talked about him wanting to be a little bit more aggressive at the top of routes. So I have seen him come down with some pretty contested catches for sure. But I do think the route tree is changing up. And more than anything, I think they're utilizing him in motion a little bit more too. They're not sitting him in one spot like a sitting ducks as an X receiver. They're moving him around. They're letting him kind of utilize the entire width of the field. And for a guy with Marv, where he wins matchups with his route running and his ability to quote unquote separate, I think that's only going to be good for him in 2025.
Yeah, that would be very good. Get him out in some space. I think that's where he's going to thrive for sure. Tight end Tre McBride, obviously one of the best in the league, did suffer last year from a lack of touchdowns. I don't think there's any denying his talent and how good he can be just with catches and yards. Do you see, are they scheming up some more stuff to get him open in the red zone a little bit more? I felt like that's what was lacking big time last year for him.
Yeah, I don't want to say there's been a conscious effort to do that here. Everybody's been on record as saying they would like to see Tre McBride score more touchdowns. And everybody we seem to talk to says touchdowns are not random, but they kind of come in bunches. That being said, Trey was this close on so many touchdown opportunities last year that just didn't come to fruition for whatever reason. If that continues in 2025, it remains to be seen if he's going to be a guy who just doesn't find the end zone, but still gets you 15 fantasy points per game. We'll also kind of see with that whenever it comes to 2025. But Trey's still going to be a very big asset whenever it comes to the red zone. But I do think the attention he draws from other teams in the red zone, I don't think that's going to change. If anything, I think that might be a little bit more serious from defenses in 2025. So to fully answer your question, to bring this back full circle, I haven't noticed any prominent changes to the red zone scheming. Granted, it's training camp, it's preseason. They are being vanilla in terms of their install and what they're showing us and showing on film in preseason. But he's certainly going to get targets. He's certainly going to get looks. How can you not when you have one of the NFL's best tight ends? But I can't sit here and say there's been a conceded effort to try to get him more touchdowns.
All right. I mean, I know they definitely made that effort in that one game. They like threw to him 4 straight times. The defense knew it was coming too. It's like the
They
last game
tried,
of the
man.
year.
They tried. But Trey's one of those guys where he's good enough to where you can throw it to him 4 times in a row. Chances are he's coming down with one of them.
He did. He finally did. It was awesome. We're watching on Red Zone going like, come on, this one's going to happen, right? Over to the running game. You know, you said it earlier. This is a pretty run heavy team. They want to run first, and rightfully so. James Conner is very, very good. They also have backup Trey Benson, who they drafted and came out highly touted out of college. Do we see them pulling back on James Conner a little bit, who has had some injury concerns throughout his career, to work in Benson, maybe keep Conner fresh, you know, and just also just utilize Benson's talents?
Yeah, that's been probably one of the more hotter topics here in the desert is what's going to happen with that backfield because all offseason, Joe, we've heard that the Cardinals have 2 starting running backs basically. And we've heard that from Connor, Benson, teammates, coaches. They're all very insistent that it's going to be like a 1A, 1B kind of thing. And I think everything you said is true. Connor has had some injury concerns in the past. They just extended him before the end of the year last year. You know, he's going to be on the wrong side of 30 moving forward. So like there is going to be a little bit of an effort to kind of try to preserve and keep him healthy. They do really like Trey Benson, second running back off of the board in the 2024 draft, a home run hitting kid out of Florida State. And he kind of struggled a little bit out of the gates last year, but once he finally found his footing, you saw some of the promise that they had seen. He's been pretty impressive in training camp. And I think him not playing for the Cardinals last week in the preseason game against Denver, because they rested their starters. They didn't play any of their starters. Benson wasn't dressed. And I think that was very telling of what they think of him moving into 2025. I do think they're going to utilize him much more heading into this year, but I'll be honest, I'm not one of those people that buys it's going to be a 50-50 share. I don't. I still think it's going to be the James Conner show. I do think Conner's touches are going to be drawn back a little bit. If I had to give you a number, probably like best case 60-40 in favor of Conner, if not a little bit more. Benson is going to get his workload for sure. I do think they want to utilize him, give a little change of pace and keep Conner healthy. But until Conner gets hurt or until the wheels fall off, it's going to be James Conner's backfield.
And Conner is the receiving back still.
Yeah, Benson can catch the ball too, though, man. Yeah. Like I will say, like you might see a little bit of like Amari DiMercado on third down just because he's a good pass blocker and he's a good pass catcher too. They do like to use that 3 running back look just throughout the chains wherever needed. But Connor's a very underrated pass catcher though, so I do think that in pass catching scenarios they're not going to get him out just to get Benson on the field.
Fair enough. All right, so this is a question that we ask everybody who comes on. Is there a player that you've seen in camp, heard about in camp, that's, you know, some of the casuals may not know, outside of Arizona may not know as well, that's flying under the radar that fantasy managers specifically should kind of keep in their back pocket, you know, just in case?
That's tough, man. That's tough because I feel like the Cardinals offense is just so it is what it is. You know, there's not a lot of room for like under the radar guys to sneak in. He's not under the radar, but he's not being drafted a whole lot.
Sure.
Zay Jones took the wide receiver 3 job from Greg Dortch this offseason. So he's kind of that starting slot receiver. Jones has been pretty productive whenever he's had a fully healthy season. That wasn't the case last year. He was suspended to start the year and never kind of really got going in Arizona. But like he's had a whole season and the whole offseason to really digest the playbook. The coaching staff really likes him. They brought him back in free agency. He's taken pretty much every rep he possibly could with the starters, while Greg Dortch, their previous slot receiver, has kind of been reduced to a backup role and more of a special teams guy now. I would watch out for him, but like Joe, like I have to be very, very honest with you. When they're not running the ball, the target distribution that I've seen in training camp is Tre McBride, Marvin Harrison Jr., and a very large gap.
Yeah.
And then that second group is like Michael Wilson, Zay Jones, running back, whoever it might be. So like you can take a flyer on a guy like Zay Jones or somebody like that, but unless injuries happen, like it's very, very clear who their top 2 passing targets are. And like the gap between Harrison and the next guy is the size of the Grand Canyon.
Yeah. I mean, and look, they're being drafted that way, so I'm not surprised to hear that. But yeah, it's always a question I like to ask. We've gotten some great nuggets out of it. Some offenses, like you said, are just kind of predictable. And there's just really nobody that even has a chance to kind of make some noise. But no, this was great, man. Thank you for coming on. I know I learned a lot. Hopefully, everybody that was listening and watching did too. Before we close out, give you a chance to let everybody know where they can find you and what you've got going on this season.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Don Andrew and follow the work at si.com/NFL/Cardinals. We also have a YouTube page, so shout out to that. Cardinals on SI, just type it in the search bar. Just hit 2K subscribers, so very happy about that. And yeah, I'll be just at practice games, doing the damn thing and living the dream. So I really appreciate the time. Thanks for having me on.
That's awesome, man. And for those of you still around, please hit that subscribe button, that like button, leave those comments. We'd love to hear from you. Jump on over to fantasysixpack.net as well. Become an all-access member. We've got the award-winning rankings over there, my draft cheat sheet, which I need to update again with Brian Robinson getting traded. And then, player projections, defensive betting stuff during the year. Promo code F6PPods is at the bottom of the screen. I'll put it in the description for those of you just listening. And then click the playlist over here to check out the rest of these team training camp check-ins, and we will see you next time.